Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor here with Sanjay Torre, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio. And Sanjay, I'm recovering from, we had a big week last week.
Yeah, very big week.
I know. Stone and I were in Arizona for the Conscious Capitalism conference there. We had a team at the stadium doing the FinTech South event. And you were kicking back, getting your venture going.
I was.
You were working hard?
Yeah, I really was.
You see the light?
Just a little bit.
We were getting closer. Well, I'm excited to learn more about that, but that will have to take place after this show. So today we're going to kick it off with Scott Fletcher, and he is with LocatorX. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, tell us about LocatorX. How are you serving folks?
Yeah, LocatorX is a startup that was founded in Jacksonville, Florida, and we just recently relocated up to Atlanta so we could scale our business more rapidly, and we're bringing a nanotechnology to the marketplace that's viewed as the foundation of the Internet of Things.
And what does nanotechnology mean?
Nanotechnology is something that's very, very small. And what we have is a miniature atomic clock that was invented at Oxford University. And if you put that in the scale of comparison, the atomic clocks that are used typically by the government for GPS and other functions for perfect time, if the size of our atomic clock was the size of a basketball, a government one would be the size of the planet Earth. So it's an enormous scale difference. You're able to take this atomic clock and basically apply it to anything, which is why it's referred to as the foundation of IoT, or the Internet of Things.
So your firm has a proprietary version of this?
We have the worldwide patent for the miniature atomic clock that was invented at Oxford University. And what we're doing, we're in the process of finalizing the design that is applied to a smart label. And our first customer is one of the largest CPG firms in the world.
And then, so how did this all come about?
The founder, Billy Meadow, a serial entrepreneur, came across a patent that the University of Oxford had. And what's amazing is you have a wealth of inventions that really sit on university shelves because it's very challenging to take great ideas and move them into commercial production. And that's the background that Billy Meadow has. Billy was able to put together a vision for the rollout of this. I actually came on board in the middle of last year. My background is I've got over 30 years in technology, launching small startups into being multi-billion-dollar companies. And that's what Billy, myself, and the rest of the leadership team are in the process of doing today.
So he's able to kind of sift through these dusty archives of patents, and he sees where there's potential commercialization.
Correct.
That's like a superpower, right?
It's amazing what he's able to vision. And what's interesting is on our journey, we've engaged with a number of large blue chip firms where they do their validation in terms of the science and the viability of that. And the feedback that we've gotten has always been a thumbs up, basically, in terms of the science behind this. Actually, the miniature atomic clock is based upon a man-made molecule. And when that man-made molecule was discovered, the three scientists behind it were awarded a Nobel Prize for that. So that gives you the significance of what this is. That man-made molecule that's referred to as a buckyball really sat on the shelves with limited applications. There were some medical applications that were being researched. And then Oxford University was able to modify that atom by inserting a nitrogen atom in the middle of that. And that's what is the creation of this miniature atomic clock that we'll be putting on a microchip that'll be embedded in a label.
And then when they're working with this, what type of equipment is necessary to manipulate this type of small things like that?
It is. It's amazing the science that goes on behind this. So Oxford University, which is typically rated as the #1 university in the world, Dr. Andrew Briggs is the head of their nanotechnology group, a world-renowned scientist, and they were able to with their advanced equipment to do this insertion of the nitrogen atom into the buckyball, and then we were able to build out testing around that enabled us to get the solid state quantities that were necessary to have a functioning atomic clock.
So when they're manipulating this or doing what you said just now, this is through microscope? Like, how do they even kind of visualize what's going on?
Yeah, you're looking at, I guess, advanced, magnification, certainly electronic microscopes that are needed, and all sorts of monitoring equipment. They actually have machine learning that they're starting to incorporate into the processing around this this molecule with the insertion of the atom in it.
So now your background has been in technology. Was it in nanotechnology?
No, I'm new to the microchip nanotechnology world. I've been in this space for over 30 years, really on the software side. So I was a computer science finance major coming out of school. Went to work for one of the leading software firms. They moved me overseas. I spent 8 years over there. I joined a startup back in the early 90s, PeopleSoft, and I launched their European business, and then they moved me to Atlanta, Georgia in 1995 for what I thought would be my typical 2-year tour somewhere. And I've lived here for, coming on 25 years. Love the city of Atlanta and the outlying areas here. But I have a software background. I'm used to coming in and building up businesses and scaling them to being multi-billion-dollar operations.
Now, when this opportunity came, were you kind of in between things, or were you looking for other opportunities?
Interesting question. So I'm in my late 50s. I've been doing these type of programs for over 30 years, and I had done a 10-year run at a human capital management firm, Ultimate Software. I joined them in 2008 and came in to assist with their migration from a on-premise license business model for HR payroll. And when I left there 10 years later, they were the leader in the cloud solution for human capital management. So I moved their model to in the cloud with a recurring SaaS revenue model. I was looking to take about 6 months off. When I'm not working, I'm very family focused, but my hobby would be I like to do adventure travel. So last year I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I was looking in the second half of last year. I had 5 mountains listed that I was going to go climbing. And then I was assisting LocatorX with the challenge that they had, and the board asked me to come on. I looked at that and I said, the mountains will be here a few years from now, but I viewed this as a transformational technology we're bringing to the marketplace, and that's sort of what swayed me to not take a 6-month sabbatical and travel around the world and jump into LocatorX.
So you don't see any irony in that you were climbing these huge mountains and now you're dealing with things that you can't see?
Correct. Yeah, very, very small items. But I think the transformational technology we're bringing to the marketplace will really make a significant impact in society. In particular, if you look at the challenge we have with counterfeiting in terms of the cost in society, the risks that you get when you have fake products out there, we believe that our ability to track anything, anywhere with this nanotechnology will be a game changer.
So that's the primary use, that people goods can be kind of tagged with this?
That's
one of the uses. I'm sure there's a lot of uses.
Correct. That's one of the primary uses. If you look at the benefit of being able to track something, and today we're able to track larger, more expensive items. We're tracking cars and airplanes and trucks, and there's benefits that come from that. But when you move that down to the level of being able to track a tube of toothpaste, if you wanted to,
or a dollar bill,
there's a lot of value in that. The counterfeiting that goes on today is a big drain on society, and we're able to not only track items when you think about supply chain and managing that in terms of counterfeiting, theft, and diversion that occur, but also there's a tremendous amount of marketing applications. So you can have couponing, which exists today, that's more of a physical format. You can do that by scanning the smart label that we have with the chip on it. There's ability to have loyalty clubs, warranties, rebates, recalls. These are all applications around the IoT solution that we bring to market.
Now, it sounds like it would play nicely with this blockchain technology.
Correct, and we have blockchain embedded in our product, which is another feature. I always describe we've got a three-phased approach. It's basically a label, then a chip that can communicate, and then the atomic clock embedded in that chip in the smart label.
But is the atomic clock in every one of those three things?
In our three phases, we've got a smart label, a communicating chip, and the atomic clock. The atomic clock would be in those two prior phases, but the other two phases are standalone large products by themselves. So smart labeling, which is quite interesting, barcodes have been out for decades. They brought tremendous value to retailers, manufacturers. Today, there's a convergence of technology that enables you to do a unique barcode on every item. So it has applications that are very powerful, from identifying the unit, doing warranties, preventing counterfeiting. And that's what we've brought to market. It's been very well received. And that has to do with the fact that today you have digital printing that's at about the same cost point of flexographic printing. So in the past, to print a unique barcode, it would have been cost prohibitive for anything other than a very expensive item. Today, it's probably 10 to 20% more expensive on the printing cost to do the digital unique barcode that would have a unique hashtag in it that's got the blockchain features.
So now, at what stage are you at now? Has anything been commercialized yet, or you're still in the kind of getting ready to, like you mentioned, one client already, so you're beta testing with them?
Yeah, so we had two large clients last year that took our first phase product, which was the smart label without the chip in it, and we intentionally scaled back the customer rollout on that because we're very focused on getting the chip in the marketplace. That was successfully launched. They're expanding their use beyond the original, I guess you'd call it a pilot project, that was very high profile internally, but it's proprietary and they don't wish to share that publicly, what they're doing. We have the chip with the communication capabilities. That's in the marketplace today, and we're in discussions with some very large contracts that we expect to announce in the next few weeks. And then we've started the design and final development on the atomic clock that's in that chip. So we've got a lot going on.
So then when do you see the atomic clock being rolled out?
The atomic clock will be rolled out in the second quarter of next year. That's what we're targeting for, and we're tracking for that scheduling.
So now, does the advent of 5G impact any of this?
Yes, that's another, I guess, building block. If you'd like to refer to it, you could think of it. We're right around the corner here from Mercedes-Benz headquarter in North America, and I think they would look at more development of interstate highway as beneficial to their business. So there's more roads you can drive on. For us, 5G just opens the bandwidth so that you can drive more communication, and that's what IoT will be doing. We're the foundation of IoT, so certainly having more bandwidth out there is very beneficial to us.
So now tell me something, if you were to look into a crystal ball, about how IoT is going to impact the average person that maybe they're not seeing, that you see very clearly.
And I would say that back on the comparison to the automobile, when the automobile came out, if you think back 100 years ago, civilization had been quite successful off of horse and buggies, and we knew how to manage that type of business. You had a lot of infrastructure around that. And the first autos that came out, they were not reliable. You had to drive it down a muddy road, all of those type of things. And then you could envision that as roads were built out, you would have suburbia, you'd have concentrated manufacturing that could distribute all over the place, you'd have leisure activities, all of these things that we've been afforded by a highway system. And it's the same thing with IoT. I think that there are certain things that you can envision in terms of, as you've got that bandwidth for communication, there's a lot of value in terms of knowing where something is. That helps you prevent counterfeiting and eliminating theft. You can see all the benefits that come from that in terms of lowering cost of goods that are out there, ensuring authenticity and product safety. But there are things that are really hard, I think, even for the inventors out there, and Billy Meadows is an example that we referred to earlier. I would venture to say that when the roads were first being built to support the automobiles, nobody really thought of a drive-in movie theater or drive-in restaurant. It's just beyond where you could take that. You could envision sort of manufacturing where it went, housing where it went, But nobody would ever, if you would have went up to somebody and said, I envision thousands of drive-up restaurants that'll be servicing people would have thought you were a little bit off. And I would say that's where IoT is. You can't envision all of the applications, and I think some of those will be absolutely game-changing, and we haven't fully thought of them. But the foundational things are very impactful. I've had 2 recent board members that came on that I think give an example for an early-stage company. We've got 10 employees, but we have the former Secretary of the U.S. Air Force joined our board just earlier this year, which is a great testament to the vision of what we have. And then prior to that, her name is Deborah Lee James, I should mention, wonderful board member that we have. And then just prior to that, we had a person, Michael Fawcett. And you might scratch your head, saying what is his background, or doesn't have that type of name recognition. He's the chief research officer at G2 Crowd, which is a technology analyst firm. They compete along with Gartner, Forrester, IDC, those firms. And for people that track technology companies as they're founded, firms will not invest or not make much of an investment or selection in a technology if it's not validated by these third parties, such as the Gartners. And people struggle to get in their rating system, which there's quadrants that Gartner has and waves that Forrester use. And I jokingly say that people just say, put me in Gartner's, not the best quadrant, but I want to be recognized as being there. Well, Michael Fawcett was the group vice president at IDC, is a real, one of the leaders in this industry technology group. He went over to G2 Crowd. He's the chief research officer there. He joined LocatorX's board at the end of last year, saying that he really saw this was the foundation of IoT. So tremendous statement there. And right now we're in contracting discussions with some very large firms about using hundreds of millions of the chips that we're bringing to market. So a really exciting time. And we've got a great company and a great story, and excited to have the team up here in Atlanta now.
So now it's been relocated. Everybody's here now?
Almost
Except your guy in England is still... You couldn't get him to leave.
Yeah, so the professor over at Oxford, we do regular calls with him, and he's on our advisory board. But we've got most of the team here. I would say today you don't get 100% concentration.
Right.
So we've got a culture where we want individuals that are working remote or virtual or whatever term you want to use, that they feel like they're part of the team. So the core group is now up here. I have my CFO is here. I've got my operations individual, salespeople that are up here. And one of the key hires that we had that was recently announced was our vice president of people and culture, which is sort of unique for a small company.
Right, with 10 people.
With 10 people to bring on somebody like that. I actually had an introduction to Mark Malice, who is a Chicago transplant that's also been here for over 25 years. He was so keen in joining that he said he would work for free for a period of time. And I said that was something I really couldn't turn down. And typically what you look at in the beginning is you'll take your HR functions and you'll have your CFO be responsible for that. But what I wanted to do was really put the foundation in place to build a long-term company. And we're very focused on the culture of the company and not just the excitement around the product and the technology that I've referred to on this call, but building a great place that people want to join us and stay with us for a very long period of time.
So what do you need more of right now? How can we help?
Yeah, I think we need more time. It's all about time management.
You have an atomic clock that's almost invisible.
Yes, we have precise times. But our funding is going very well. Our customer acquisition is moving along quite nicely. We were under the radar up until the beginning of March. We really didn't have much publicity out there. We engaged a PR firm in the beginning of March, and in the first 4 weeks, we had 27 headlines that were out there, picked up by 17 different publications. Mm-hmm. So it's moving along quite nicely. We also have on the government or defense side, which is sort of a bit counterintuitive, where they're usually not the first movers into technology. They've got longer cycle times for doing evaluations. And what we've been fast-tracked really at the highest levels within the Department of Defense, where they're interested in incorporating our solution into basically all of the assets that they manage and the procurement side of their business.
Now, are you looking for talent? Do you need more technology talent?
We need, yes, we do need more technology talent. We're we're building up relationships with the higher education institutes here. That's, I think, one of the great things about Atlanta is you've got a really strong talent pool and great universities to tap into.
So there's nanotech programs right now?
They do chip design at Georgia Tech. So they've got a great program around that. You've got computer science programs at a number of universities here.
I didn't know if the nanotech was built into curriculums.
I would say that the leading one here would be Georgia Tech. We're looking to sort of change some of that. We're in discussions with a chip designer that's in Southern California and is looking to sort of move out of the high-tax state and somewhere else. So I believe we'll probably have this individual relocating here to Atlanta, Georgia.
Good stuff. Well, if somebody wanted to learn more, what are your coordinates?
Yeah, we are at LocatorX, and that's locator with an X. So it's locatorx.com. We've got a blog out there that highlights the culture of our company, the technology that we're bringing to market, and we're also looking to brand ourselves as really having a strong policy on privacy and privacy protection. If you look at technology in general, how some of that's been overlooked and caused challenges out there, we've got a very strong policy on how we protect privacy out there. And then we're on social media, and we've got a lot of press that's out there and coming out about LocatorX.
Good stuff, Scott. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right. Hang with us. A couple more guests. Next up on Atlanta Business Radio, we got Tommy Estes with Estes Services. Welcome, Tommy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How's your atomic clock working for you?
Well, I didn't know I had one. I tell you what, I thought I was pretty smart until I listened to Scott. So my head's kind of spinning right now.
Right. That's amazing stuff that's happening here in Atlanta. You've seen a lot, huh?
Yes, sir, I have.
So tell us about the Estes, the evolution of Estes. I know you guys have been doing this for a minute or two, and now you're expanding into different areas.
Yeah, we have. We've been in business since 1949, actually the year I was born, and this is our 70th year in business. So it's kind of a special year. We had a big celebration at the Georgia Aquarium, over 300 people there in January. Celebrate, had a lot of former employees and current ones, of course, and vendors. And actually, our third employee that worked for my dad was actually at the party. Wow. He was 91 years old.
Man.
So we've I'm one of these people that have literally grown up in the business and seen a lot of changes in Atlanta, especially in technology. We're involved in the Internet of Things also, as far as smart homes and things like that, but not near to the degree that he's talking about. But anyway, we've it's someone like me that's 70 versus all the millennials that I have and own a little bit older. They kind of grasp it a little better than I do. But we're there.
What was it like growing up in a family business and having and passing it down to another generation? In America, family businesses don't have the kind of longevity that they do in maybe some European countries,
right,
that have lasted 500, 700 vineyards that have lasted, for multi-generations. But in America, it tends to only last a couple of generations. It doesn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, the chance of success from first generation to second generation, which I'm the second generation, is probably 50% or less. From second to third, which is my son Brian, who is now the president of the company, it's probably who knows, 10 or 12% or whatever. It's pretty slim.
Right.
But as far as me growing up in the business, like I say, I've just been around it all my life. But my dad started the business really out of the trunk of his car. He was in the Army and discovered that he was a type 1 diabetic, which we support the American Diabetes Association pretty strongly because of my ties with them. Fortunately, I don't have that disease, but I know how it is. But I mentioned that because he faced a lot of challenges building the business that a lot of people wouldn't have. But we started out, just putting in floor furnaces out of the trunk of his car really.
It was before air conditioning. When did air conditioning?
Well, that's what I'm
Right.
getting at. Back then, in 1949, 1950, hardly anybody in Atlanta had air conditioning. So that's most people had either floor furnaces or wall furnaces in little, small homes. Most of them. So that's kind of how we got our start. But over evolving, recently, I kind of look at things every 10 years. So, the first 10 years was in that area. Second one, we did a lot of new construction, which we learned a lot of lessons. And, what I've learned really what not to do more than what to do in the business.
You just have to be right a few times, right?
Yeah, really. And so one thing I learned that we don't need to be doing is new construction because it's a very tough market and it's hard to make any money in new construction. It's very labor intensive and, we don't do new construction now at all, but we've gone through a period of time where we had did a lot of new construction, did a lot of commercial, a lot of the big apartment complexes and commercial buildings in Atlanta. We were involved one way or the other, probably in the 60s and 70s. I graduated from college in 71, and probably all during high school, I was working. When my friends were out playing, I was usually working, installing it. Back then, we were adding, by this time, all those houses that didn't have air conditioning or central heat, we were installing central systems or we were adding on air conditioning. And so what I would do is I would be in college, and I went to West Georgia College in Carrollton. So I would come home almost every weekend, and they'd have a job for me to do. So I would work Friday night and Saturday installing that add-on, and I learned a lot that way. But as far as growing up, with my dad, I mean, it was, it's not easy being the boss's son, and I try to remember that with Brian, although we're kind of past that now. But
so like you always had to work harder to prove that you were really worthy of this and not just kind of,
that's exactly right. I've always felt like I've had to work, pretty much harder than everybody else. But when my dad, because he was a diabetic, he had a lot of medical problems, and he actually retired. He never really retired. He had some health problems, and just probably about he died. My mother and my dad died 9 months apart. My mother died in 98. My dad died in 99, right before our 50th anniversary of that. That was 20 years ago. But so he had been out of the business for 7 or 8 years before that. So I mean, I'd pretty much been.
So you were in your 40s then?
Yeah, I was in my 40s, and. Like I've told Brian, I've had to build 2 different management teams over the years, and the one that we have now, we've got a great team of young managers that we have 175 employees, and
so you agree with Scott about the importance of culture and
I'm really big on culture, and it's probably a lot easier with 10 employees than it is with 175.
If you get it right with 10, you have a better chance. You don't want to start that at 175.
Yeah, in our industry, you're not always. You're not working sometimes with. Not everybody has a college degree, and they have different outlooks on life than maybe one of his 10 guys are probably all scientists or whatever, very smart guys. And we have some smart guys too, but you have to handle them different. And if it doesn't fit our culture, then we can't handle it.
In your case, these people are going into people's homes.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're representing your brand.
Yeah. I mean,
you're miles and miles away from them.
You're exactly right.
You got to get that right.
That's what we tell them. I mean, when they're in a home, they're representing Estes, and that homeowner needs to know that they can trust that person, and that's why they all wear uniforms. They're all neat. They're all all drive Estes trucks. They have ID badges. We drug test them. We background test them. We do the best we can to make sure we have the very best people out there. So.
How do you get the hiring right? I mean, that has to be such a challenge to, everybody's on best behavior on the interview.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's true. And what we've done to kind of overcome that as far as our service technicians and plumbers, and electricians, but especially the heating and air service technicians. We have our own training program, and we train our own people. And
in the Estes way.
Exactly. We'd almost rather have
someone who isn't
somebody that hadn't worked somewhere else because they've learned some bad habits.
Right.
Yeah.
They got to unlearn things.
Yeah, it is a lot easier to teach someone your own. I'd rather have somebody with a good attitude and a mechanical ability, but not necessarily. He doesn't have to be an expert to start with. But fact of the matter, what we've found that people that come through our training program, that a lot of them have been through technical schools. And we've found that we can teach them more in 13 weeks in our program than they can learn in 2 years in technical school. Plus, we're training on the most modern equipment, where a lot of times in technical
might
school,
be older.
Yeah, they got labs that have been there for 20 years or something like that. So yeah, hiring's always a challenge, but we have a really good HR manager, and he kind of leads and guides us on that. And like I say, we've got a great team. Really, out of those 175 people, only 2 of them report to me. And my goal has been to build this company that it doesn't depend on me. And that's kind of where we are right now. So I'm really proud of that. But another thing about Estes that's very unique is I would say our main, I'm going to say all our competition, but our main competitors in Atlanta have all been purchased by private equity groups. And they have a source of money that we don't have, but at the same time, they don't have the legacy and the loyalty that we feel like we have. And I still believe that people had rather, I used to say in some of my radio spots and things like that, there's always that Estes at Estes. You heard that. I think Orchid or somebody said that, but and that's the case right now. But we feel pretty strongly about that people that rather deal with a home-based company,
right? A family-run. They have roots here in the city.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, that's what we hope that's true. A lot of people could care less.
Well, some
we
people
think it's
care.
important.
They want the price or whatever. Some brand that has the best billboard or commercial and has the deepest pockets.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the customers have to, like and respect the work that you do, and you guys do great work. I mean, it's something you should be proud of. This is a big achievement to have now a third generation involved in the company. That's extremely difficult, and Atlanta should support, companies like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what we think, and I just can't tell you how many times I'm approached by these private equity groups. I mean, it's really...
Well, it seems like they're rolling up these kind of businesses that have a good base of clients. Like I saw it with I have a car place that I was getting my car fixed for 30 years.
Yeah.
Got rolled up by one of these, national firms, private equity based. Yeah. I haven't been back. I mean, the level of service dropped immediately.
Yeah. Well, when that happens, their first their main objective is to resell, is to cut out some of the overhead, strip it down as much as they can.
Right. It's run by accountants now. It's not run by people who care about the community.
And then resell it again. And I'm not saying we would never do that, but that's not my plan. And at this point in my life, I could, if I was going to do that, I would have done it a long time ago.
Right.
So I think that we're on the right track. We had probably the best year. We did have the best year we've had ever last year. And we're actually head of.
So does Brian mention that to you?
Mention what? That
they had the best year last year when he was the president.
He reminds me of that, but it's Brian is the president now. John Waldorf is our general manager, and between those two guys, I mean, they're different, but yet they work good together. John's more of a operational guy, and Brian's more of a on the business side, I guess. But together they make a good team. But anyway, we feel like the future's bright, for Estes. And, you mentioned other services. We not only do heating and air, but the reason we changed about 4 or 5 years ago from Estes Heating and Air to Estes Services is that we do plumbing, we do electrical, we do, basement encapsulations, we do attic insulation, we do a lot of different things that kind of opens up because, if you think about it, your customer base for heating and air, they're the same customer base for all those other things,
Right. You already build a relationship and you're already in the house and they trust you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a logical kind of evolution of services you can add. Are you getting into like security or like the smart homes and things like that?
Well, we're not into security as far as actually having, alarm systems and things like that, but we are as far as
like installing the cameras and
communicating
like
thermostats,
the smoke
and
detectors and radon and all that. You can install some of that.
Yeah, we do that. That's not our main focus, but yeah, we can. We got the people that can do pretty much just about anything, and so it really works out nice. But I was going to mention something else too, but. So
you're working on in the house. You started with the furnace and then expanded to the air, and then now you're into plumbing and electrical. So that means like if I have an electrical problem, or I want to maybe add outlets, or maybe I got to kind of upgrade my electrical because I have an older house. That's areas you guys work in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we do. We don't. We're not really going after new construction. Here, I mentioned we don't do new construction. That doesn't mean we can't do it. But that's just an area that we're not focused on. I'd rather do the service work and replacement after the fact.
Mm-hmm. And what about, you mentioned a little bit about commercial. Are you focused on residential or you do a little commercial as well? I'm
glad you brought that commercial. We do a significant amount of commercial. It's probably 20% of our business, 25%. And it's here again, it's not new construction. It's not what we call plan and spec. It's negotiated commercial. In other words, it's replacement or it's adding on. It's things that we can get on. I like to do jobs that we can get on and off of in a short period of time and get paid for instead of stretching it out forever. And what I was going to mention a while ago is we really are very interested in increasing our service agreement base. We have probably about 13,000 residential service contracts, and we have probably a couple of thousand commercial contracts. So a lot of our business comes from that, and those are our most loyal customers. But yeah, as far as commercial, we do a good job. Handling that. It's unlike residential in that you may have a big swing and then it kind of levels off, but where like residential's pretty consistent as long as the weather cooperates. Like this first quarter of this year, it hadn't been. It's just been a weird. It hadn't been real cold,
Right.
So we're glad to see this heat. We hope it continues on.
Now, you mentioned the work with the Diabetes Association. Yeah. Are there any other ways you serve the community?
Yeah, we. Let me just elaborate a little bit more on that. We just past weekend we had the Diabetes Association had a function called Tour de Cure. You might have heard it. It's a bike ride, walk, and so it was at Stone Mountain, and we were the main sponsor on that. And we raised, including the sponsorship, we raised probably about $12,000-$13,000 for that. So that's really one of our main things. But we also there's a children's home called Carrie Steele Pitt's Home on the south side of town. That we've been supporting for probably 20 years, and that's mainly at Christmas time. At Christmas time, we support probably about 10 to 15 families, that we find out that need their kids need toys for Christmas and things like that. This last year, we advertise on the Fish Radio, and they have we've actually been in two different things in December and January where we actually gave away a system to a deserving family. So yeah, we sponsor or we support, as much as you can. You have to be, everybody wants you to support them, right?
Sure.
And you can't really do that. So what you have to do, what I think is you focus on just the ones that you want to focus on, and then help the rest as you can. So we do a lot.
And then what's next for you? So now you got Brian is handling, I guess, more of the day-to-day stuff, and you're just showing up for these kind of radio things. And
well, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. Yeah, that's probably the number one question I get. What are you going to do now that Brian and
you're going to open up another thing?
Yeah,
a new venture.
No,
like Scott. Scott was about to climb mountains. And now all of a sudden he's starting this nanotech company.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind climbing a mountain. No, you know what? I don't think I'll ever totally retire, to be honest with you. But I think I will. I definitely have to step back. I don't work as much as I tell people I work now because I want to, not because I have to.
Sure.
And that's a pretty good place to be. So I don't know. I'll probably start working less and less and see how it goes.
But don't you like just the kind of the rush of the business part?
I do, yeah. And every time I think about, it's kind of like Scott's talking about how they're into exciting new things all the time. Well, ours are a little different level, but I feel the same way. When you start to think, I want to be a part of what's going on,
right?
But I have to be careful to have to, to be. You got to surround yourself with the right people,
right?
It's like in the book, Good to Great. Make sure everybody's on the right bus
and the right seats on the bus.
The right seats on the bus. Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I kind of sometimes I'll say, well, I need to give this guy. I'll reel him out, and then I have to just reel him back in if he gets too far out of line. So you got to let your managers make decisions and
skin their knee a little bit too.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So that's really that's probably the hardest thing for me is because sometimes I don't feel like I'm in control like I used to be. But
you probably have opinions.
Oh, right? I have a lot of opinions. Yeah, and they know it. But no, we get it. We manage that well.
Good stuff. Well, if somebody wants to learn more about Estes services and all the work you guys do for folks, what's the website?
The website is estesair.com. And you can reach us through there, through Facebook, Twitter, all the normal things. But our website is is probably the place to start.
Good stuff. Well, Tommy, congratulations. 70 years is a big achievement. You should be proud. Your family has supported this community since the 40s. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, hang with us. One more guest. Next up on Atlanta Business Radio, we got Adam Araujo with Lead Web. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, Adam, what are you up to? How are you serving folks?
Well, I'm not,
get close to that.
Building nano clocks.
Get close to that microphone, buddy. You got to rock star that mic.
When I'm not building nano clocks, I'm doing advertising. So no, it was awesome hearing you two guys talk, dropping some knowledge bombs over there. With the culture and the hiring and everything like that.
Serving the community, that's what it's all about.
Serving the community, the whole thing. But so Lead Web is I kind of changed it a little bit as far as what I'm doing. It's almost like an engine that's going to be running multiple platforms. So currently what we're doing is working with a lot of doctors. So, for example, a lot of doctors don't like Facebook, let alone just opening it up.
You're talking about marketing their business?
Yeah, marketing the business. Well, not even just marketing the business, but just Facebook and social media in general. They're just like, I just don't want to deal with it. So especially if they've had patients from, bell to bell. So basically what we did was we found a way to streamline leads and data and everything going directly to someone's phone in real time so that way they can call, email, or text and, with a click of a button versus having to go into the ads manager, which most people don't even know exists.
So you're doing it on their behalf?
Yeah. Well, I'm not doing it. So the app is doing it. Exactly. Yeah. So for example, let's say you're interested in getting like a dental implant and you say, yes, I'm interested. That goes directly to whomever's going to be running that particular.
So through their CRM, it plays with their CRM?
It would connect to the CRM if they really wanted to. And it's worked extremely well because the average response time on a lead, believe it or not, is 44 hours, an online lead. It's crazy. That's if you
2 days.
Oh yeah, 2 days. So for example, let's say you go to.
I bet it's not that at Estes.
Oh, I was going to say that. Let's say you go to Estes and you say, hey,
I think Tommy would be making some calls with 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Be doing a whole different management team. But basically, I mean, we eliminated the response time down to 5 minutes. Really, on some cases it's even instant. And
so they're getting a response by an automated response of some kind.
It could be automated. It could be email, text, phone call. It's with the click of a button. You could see whichever one you wanted to do. And the cool part is the most recent campaign we did in Gainesville, Georgia. This dentist office wasn't even open yet. Didn't even have their store built out. And we ended up generating 151 new patients in less than 30 days to a brand new location. I don't even think he still has his sign up on the front yet.
So you created a compelling offer that got people to take action where they booked appointments?
Oh yeah, 100%. And so that's another thing that we also add, because a lot of companies don't speak Spanish, so we handle the Spanish and the English side of advertising, and we actually set the appointments for them, which I've realized that the people who don't set the appointments or have us set the appointments for them normally have a lower show rate, because I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess it's just not a natural thing for them to say, aside from a zombie apocalypse, why wouldn't you make this appointment today, right? So, it's honestly just simplifying and speeding up the process of response.
So you're focusing on dentists or doctors of all kinds?
Doctors of all kinds. Dentists is just something that we happen to, really focus on. In fact, that particular dentist who started up is interested in being on part of the board just because of the response that he had and the results. Yeah.
So now, so play out how it works. So you meet a dentist, and they're like, "Hey, I'll give this a." They're probably frustrated because they were doing something before, right?
Oh, 100%. So when you go up to someone and say, "Hey, I do lead generation," it's just you just kind of throw their hands in the air, and like, "Oh my gosh!"
Every other, I got 100 emails.
I'm sure you have a whole bunch of people, reaching out. So, what we do set us apart is, we're a software company. We just happen to run great ads. So, kind of the Simon Sinek approach of, we're he did this whole talk on Apple. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that talk. And he was like, we just happen to make great computers. So that's kind of like our approach, and it's worked extremely well, because they're like, oh wow, we can eliminate response time. And I'm like, yeah. So that's our big thing, is just the response time aspect of it, because I can't even remember what I did 15 minutes ago, let alone someone else, clicking a button on a computer. So
okay, so now this dentist is out there, and he's trying Facebook, he's trying everything that pops
Boosting
up,
posts,
right, doing whatever, and then so they meet you, and then what happens now?
Yeah, so we basically do them on a 7-day free trial. For example, we just did one recently in Miami, and in 6 days we generated 126 leads. At that point, he was like, "This is nuts. This is crazy. This is a no-brainer," and we ended up, rolling from there. So normally, a lot of people find it almost hard to believe that we're getting this amount of results until they actually see it for themselves. So, especially in Gainesville, Georgia, there's only, I think, 32,000 people that live there, and we generated, I think it was like 394 leads in 30 days. It's pretty crazy.
So, okay, so I say I'm interested. So now, what are you doing? What am I doing?
Yeah, so basically we set up everything on the back end, letting us, to do your ads. We set you up on the software.
So I have to have a Facebook ad. It's through Facebook?
It's through Facebook.
So Facebook ad account?
A Facebook ad account, a Facebook business page, right? And that's it. There's no sales funnels involved. You don't have to do any...
So, but now you're doing all the work?
Yeah, we're doing all the work. They don't have to do a single thing, except for when a lead comes in on their phone, they just click it, and they click call, email, text, and that's it.
So they respond to each lead that comes in.
Correct.
That's their responsibility.
100%. Yeah.
And that's not automated.
No, because it's kind of hard to automate that, especially in the medical industry, just because of HIPAA and everything else that goes along with it. That's, there's a gray area there where we can set the appointment, but we can't necessarily talk to them after they become a patient, just because of the patient. Yeah, exactly.
So now I said, okay, Adam, I'm in. And then you go, okay, I do my magic. So who comes up with the offer? Or
so that's part of the whole conversation before we even get started. It's what are you doing? For the most part, we deal with dental implants just because it's not a really big market that a lot of people know about, but it's growing. It's getting really, really big. And
so you've already tested these. This is a good offer that has worked historically. Why don't we try this one?
Every single time. Yeah, it's worked every single time. So we normally stick with that. I throw it out there saying, hey, we can do whatever you'd like to, But just historically, kind of like what you mentioned, this is what's worked extremely well in the past. We can try it if that's something that you want to do. And they're always like, yeah, that makes so much sense.
So now how much am I throwing at, how much money is Facebook getting from me for this
well, you see
7-day trial?
Well, 7-day trial, we normally only say about a 50 to 100 in ad spend.
Okay, so I spent $100 in Facebook dollars. Nothing for you yet.
Nothing for me. So essentially, we're setting them up as if they were going to be a client of ours. They just don't sign any contracts. They don't give us a card number. The only sort of payment information they would give us is just what they would put on there for the ad spend, and that's it. So they don't even pay us a dime before we actually generate business for them.
So then you have your ad. You have some magic way of making the ad.
Magic touch, the Midas touch, however you want to say it. Yeah, I mean that's essentially it in a nutshell. I mean, I wish there was something more like difficult, like nanotechnology.
Just you need a miniature atomic clock. If you can add that in the mix. Then
could you
over.
imagine the pitch for that? I mean, it just would be game over. Absolutely. There's really nothing too difficult, and that's the beauty behind this. I mean, everything that's extremely simple from a technology standpoint, which I'm sure you'd probably mention, is extremely difficult on the back end, right? So we did it to where it's extremely simple from a user experience, and it literally it's just like very rudimentary looking, but it works extremely well.
So now, are we A/B testing offers? Like, how does that come into play?
In some areas, I found that the larger cities like Miami, New York, our offers work extremely well there. But since we're doing, the type of advertising that we're doing, I don't want to cannibalize my business and increase ad costs, so we kind of put in a 12-mile radius as far as exclusivity goes. So
you give like exclusivity to a dentist for a 12-mile radius from their shop?
Yep. So that way we're not, because most people would be willing to travel 12 miles, maximum. That's what we found. Pushing it out to 20 is a little much. But even in Miami, there's a dentist on every corner.
Right.
So the fact that we're doing that whole exclusivity thing, it really it just kind of sets us apart. And honestly, it helps me because it keeps our ad costs low.
Now, what about you? Do you use your own technique to get new clients for yourself?
It's funny enough. I found the best way to do it is cold calling. That's what we.
So you don't use the tactic you recommend to your clients for yourself?
Well, funny enough, because it's so funny you mention it. Every single one of my clients especially when I first started doing this back in 2014, I got a free trial on ZipRecruiter, and I said, "Hey, I'm willing to pay X amount residual every single week for the life of the client. All you have to do is set the appointment with the business owner." And at that point, we weren't verticalized and going after each one. So literally, I was doing lead generation for Mary's Pizza and then Jimmy's phone repair shop. But every person that came on at least knew 2 to 3 business owners, and that's how those appointments would set. I ended up bringing on, at 327 reach out to me, 32 decided to actually do a 1099, and that's how my business ended up getting started, was doing that. And then I realized, kind of verticalizing and going after a specific one group is helped extremely well because, one, the data that we're gathering off of it, and it just helps us from an advertising standpoint really, zone in. And
so you're looking for right now medical practices anywhere in the country?
Anywhere in the country. I mean, we're even working in Canada, funny enough. So, which I guess would be in North America, but you know what I mean? Like we can. My first client that I've ever had was in the UK. So, we can literally do this.
And
anywhere.
The same offer has worked everywhere you've been?
Every single
that's
place.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That must be a good offer.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So you just need more medical practices.
That's it.
That'll make Adam happy.
Absolutely, that would make everyone happy. That's involved with it.
And then, so what's your personal best in terms of results for a client?
As far as revenue?
Or just results like number of leads in?
Sure. So we have 2 that the most recent that we've done. One was the 150 new patients in less than 30 days, which generated over $100,000 in revenue. And the second one was the free trial that we did for the guy in Miami when we first started, with him, and it was 126 leads in 6 days. So those are the craziest ones more recently that we've done.
Now, how long can you run one offer without kind of the audience saying, okay, enough already?
Well, the offer is always good, right? Because, I mean, just look at it from, and this is like the key to advertising, right? Is when you don't have something new, you have to repurpose it to almost look new, but it's the same offer. So they're kind of like saying the same thing, but in a different way. And honestly, a lot of people get ad blind, right? So when you're scrolling through Facebook and you're seeing all these different ads for, hey, we can do lead generation, kind of like what you mentioned, everyone's just kind of like, oh, I'm kind of over it, right? So I didn't want to get caught in that same sort of, bubble as everyone else of, hey, they're just a lead generation company. But the offer, you have to keep changing up the pictures and everything like that. So the offer always stays the same. It's honestly just a different approach of every single time you actually run that ad. And even with the same clients, you have to keep changing it up every week or every 2 weeks.
And you're managing that. That's part of what they're paying you for?
Yeah, exactly. So we handle everything from the ad copy to the ad creation, every aspect of it, and including the appointment setting. Good stuff. If somebody wants to learn more? Yeah, so on the dentist side of things, you can go to dentistaapp.com, so DENTISTA app.com. And then, but you work in other medical, do you work for chiropractors? Well, yeah, so we have one called the Align. It's almost the same sort of concept, right? Same engine running a different platform. The Align app, which is TheAlign. I think it's how you spell Align. AlignApp.com. I'm probably going to get so you have a different website for each vertical in medical? Right, exactly. That's how we're kind of structuring this. Just different platforms for different verticals. Good stuff, Adam. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. This is Lee Cantor for Sanjay Toure. We will see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.